What's up, guys? Welcome to the Fantasy Addiction Network. Today we're going to be talking Week 4 power rankings, so make sure you hit that like and subscribe button before we get started. Alright guys, so going into Week 4, looking at all 8 teams across the XFL, giving you guys their power rankings, showing you some highlights from last week. We'll begin where we have begun for every week now thus far, is with number 8, Tampa Bay Vipers. Now they are the only 0-3 team right now. Overall, looked a lot better last week, at least in terms of their offense, but their defense definitely took a step back. Taylor Cornelius was able to find some success, although still a bit inconsistent here. Now, Quentin Flowers took a leave of absence today from this team, and honestly, it sounds like he's not going to be back anytime soon. I hope I'm wrong in that. I hope that this is just a temporary leave, because I think that he gives that team a pretty interesting dynamic, but we'll see if that actually ends up hurting them at all. They're going to get to play the DC Defenders this week, who just had a meltdown last week, so we'll see how that goes. All right. Now let's jump over to team number 7, the New York Guardians. Now at 1-2. Last week they were number 5, so they dropped 2 more spots here, and I almost put them at number 8. I just couldn't justify putting an 0-3, almost potentially 0-4 team above them. Now I think this team is the most self-inflicted wounded team than any other team in the XFL. Looking very shaky on offense. They need stability at the quarterback position right now, which they just don't have. They need to be able to find a way to score points. I hope that they start Luis Perez this week. He looked pretty solid in the couple drives he had last week. Overall, they still have a really strong defense, and I think this team would be really good if they could just get some stability on offense. So hopefully they will make some adjustments before they get to their home matchup against the Wildcats this week. All right. Jumping up to number 6, we have the Seattle Dragons, who last week were at rank number 7, so they jumped up 1 spot this week. Now, the Dragons lost another game after falling short in the second half, but they continue to show promise on both sides of the ball. It's just a really interesting team right now. They have yet to have a complete game where they have that fight and that drive that if they were able to maintain the way that they were playing in the first half throughout the entire game, they'd look great, but they have another rough outing this week going up to St. Louis. Probably are going to go 1-3. Their quarterback is still very up and down. Brandon Silver's there, hovering around a 73 quarterback rating, which is mediocre, but he's shown some promise. This team has a lot of ability to do better than they're doing right now, so we'll see how they fare in week 4. All right. Jumping up to team number 5, jumping up from 1 spot last week, the LA Wildcats. 1-2 here, but had the shocker of the week last week, in which they took down the DC Defenders. Now, Josh Johnson looked like he had knocked off all of the rust that he had accumulated by not playing much in the offseason. Still hasn't thrown an interception. Martez Carter and Trey McBride both give this offense additional life, but they are both dealing with injuries, as is Nelson Spruce, one of the better wide receivers in this league. He's most likely going to miss this week and maybe more time with an knee injury, so that kind of already handicaps the Wildcats even after gaining some momentum from last week. Not sure where this defense came from last week. Their defense was playing pretty bad the first couple weeks, but they looked much improved against DC. They get to face the Guardians this week, who are playing pretty bad on offense, so I think they're going to be a good fantasy play. But overall, I think the Wildcats have definitely taken a step forward. All right, jumping over to team number 4, the biggest faller right now, the DC Defenders. Now, last week they were number 1, so this is a drop of 3 spots for them. There really wasn't anything that worked out well for them last week. Cardale Jones, their quarterback, looked terrible. The defense was sloppy. Special teams had some mistakes as well. This is going to be a really interesting week to see how they rebound, going on the road to face a Tampa team that is desperate for a win, and they may smell blood in the water. If the DC Defenders can come back and win this one handily, I think that we can write last week off as them just not being prepared. But if they struggle on this one or they lose, it might be time to sound the panic alarms in DC. So this week is going to be very critical for the Defenders. All right, going up to number 3, jumping up 1 spot from last week, is the St. Louis BattleHawks at 2-1. Now, this team dominated a poor New York team and made their offense continue to look poor. They didn't need to do too much in this game, with New York obviously not doing too much on offense, but their defense looked really good. St. Louis's run game was very dominant, and Jordan Ta'amu didn't really need to do much of anything, but still looks really good. Probably will end up going 3-1 this week, which will further boost their standings playing against the Dragons. All right, jumping up to number 2, jumping up one spot from last week is the Dallas Renegades, 2-1. This is the only team, to win 2 road games right now, and arguably would have won week 1 if they had Landry Jones playing. They barely lost to the St. Louis BattleHawks with their backup quarterback. So overall, I really like what the Dallas Renegades are doing. Their defense has actually been playing a little bit less good than advertised, but they seem to be good enough to be able to hold it together, and the offense is playing great. It's been very tough to defend, and they've still been making a decent amount of mistakes. Landry Jones throwing some interceptions and fumbling this last week. So if Landry Jones can become completely comfortable in this offense, they will be incredibly difficult to beat. But right now, the number 1 team, the obvious answer is the Houston Roughnecks, who are 3-0, jumping up from number 2 last week. This offense looks unstoppable, and will get a chance to really prove their strength yet again. They get to play Dallas on the road in Dallas this week. Their defense has been a bit puzzling. They're pretty good at generating pressures and not ceding a lot of rushing yards, but they still give up a lot in the passing game. Now, this week will be very telling, as this will be their toughest contest on the season and is on the road. So if the Houston Roughnecks can win this game, then they probably have no excuse to not run the table. But I'm not so sure how this game is going to go for them. We'll see how it fares on Sunday. But overall, those are my power rankings. It's been pretty awesome to see how much parity there actually is in this league. Yes, the Houston Roughnecks are pretty clear the number 1 team right now, but there's still a chance for every team to still make their name known in this league right now, and it's keeping things pretty interesting week to week, which is really important when you only have 8 teams. So pretty excited for week 4. Make sure you guys are following everything that's happening around the league. Click that like and subscribe button. We'll keep you up to date on everything happening, keeping you ready for all the fantasy contests this week. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.